You're not even a good wife. I regret getting married to you.
The wine glass shattered against the marble floor of the Adebayo family dining room, burgundy liquid spreading like blood across the pristine white tiles. Kemi Adebayo stood frozen, her hand still raised from where her husband Tund had just slapped it away, sending her drink flying. "You embarrass me in front of my family with your stupid questions." Tund's voice boomed through the elegant Lagos mansion, his spit landing on Kemi's cheek as he leaned over her chair. "Know your place, woman." The dinner table fell silent. Tund's mother, Mama Adebayo, smiled smugly from her seat while his three brothers exchanged knowing glances. His sister Funmi actually chuckled, adjusting her gold jewelry as if this domestic betrayal was evening entertainment. What would you do if you walked in on this? Hit like if you've been betrayed, and comment below where you're watching from. Kemi's 8-year-old daughter Zara burst into tears, while her 5-year-old son Kofi hid behind his napkin. The children had just witnessed their father publicly disgrace their mother over a simple question about his new business expansion plans. "Tund, please," Kemi whispered, wiping the spittle from her face with trembling fingers. The children need to see what happens when wives don't respect their husbands." He grabbed her chin roughly, forcing her to look at him. "You think because you work at some little office that you can question me? I am the man of this house." Kemi's heart pounded as she stared into the cruel eyes of the man she'd loved for 12 years. This wasn't the ambitious Lagos University graduate she'd married. This wasn't the father who once sang lullabies to their babies. This was a stranger wearing her husband's face. "Tund has every right to put you in your place," Mama Adebayo declared, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "In my day, wives knew better than to challenge their husbands at family dinner." The emotional manipulation was suffocating. For months, Tund had been growing more aggressive, more controlling. But tonight, in front of his entire family, he'd crossed a line that changed everything. What Tund didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Kemi's little office was actually the headquarters of Emerald Holdings, the parent company that owned 80% of his precious construction business. While he'd been taking credit for their success, presenting himself as the self-made millionaire to his family and friends, Kemi had been the silent power behind their empire. She'd built her investment firm from nothing while he was still struggling to get his first construction contract. When he'd come to her desperate for funding 3 years ago, she'd quietly become his majority partner while letting him maintain the illusion of being the boss. "I think I've heard enough for tonight," Kemi said quietly, standing up and smoothing her traditional Ankara dress. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly. "Sit down," Tund commanded. "We're not done here." "Oh, but we are." Kemi looked directly at him, something dangerous flickering in her dark eyes. "We are very much done." She walked calmly to where her children sat, gathered them close, and headed toward the door. Behind her, she could hear Tund's family laughing and making jokes about putting women in their place. "Where do you think you're going?" Tund called after her. Kemi paused at the doorway, her children's small hands clutching her dress. When she turned back, her face was transformed. Gone was the submissive wife who'd just been publicly humiliated. In her place stood a woman who'd built a multi-million-dollar empire from scratch. "I'm going to make a phone call," she said simply. As she walked out into the warm Lagos night with her children, Kemi pulled out her phone and dialed her lawyer's number. It was time for Tund to learn exactly who he'd just declared war against. Inside the dining room, Tund was already opening another bottle of wine, celebrating what he thought was his victory over his disobedient wife. He had no idea that by tomorrow morning, his entire world would be turned upside down. The infidelity in marriage, the emotional manipulation, the public disgrace, it was all about to come full circle in ways Tund could never imagine. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below. The next morning, Kemi sat in her corner office on the 20th floor of the Emerald Holdings building in Victoria Island, watching the Lagos traffic crawl below. Her assistant, Bola, brought in coffee and the morning papers, carefully avoiding eye contact. Word traveled fast in their social circles. Mrs. Adebayo, Your lawyer, Mr. Okafor, is here, Bola announced softly. Emmanuel Okafor entered, his briefcase heavy with documents. As one of Lagos's most feared corporate lawyers, he'd helped Kemi navigate the complex business world while keeping her involvement in her husband's company completely hidden. Kemi, I heard about last night, Emmanuel said, settling into the leather chair across from her desk. Half of Lagos is talking about it. The Adebayos never could keep family business private. Kemi's phone buzzed with text messages. Screenshots of WhatsApp conversations, voice notes from concerned friends, even grainy photos someone had taken through the dining room window. The humiliation was spreading like wildfire through Lagos's elite social media groups. Look at this, she said, showing him her phone. Funmi Adebayo posted on Instagram about women who don't know their place, with laughing emojis. She's tagged half our mutual friends. The co-parenting conflict was just beginning. Tund had already called twice, demanding she bring the children back to their proper home immediately. His voicemails were filled with threats about custody battles and parental rights. He doesn't understand what he's dealing with, Emmanuel observed, reviewing the corporate documents spread across Kemi's mahogany desk. Your ownership structure is ironclad. You've been funding his company's expansion, paying his employees' salaries, even covering his family's medical bills through Emerald Holdings. Kemi stood and walked to the window, her silk blouse catching the morning light. Below, she could see the construction site of one of Tund's current projects, a luxury hotel that was being built entirely with her money. I kept quiet for the sake of our marriage, our children, she said. I let him take credit because I thought it would strengthen our family. I was a fool.
Her phone rang.
It was her mother-in-law. Kemi, you will bring my grandchildren back to this house immediately. Mama Adebayo's voice crackled through the speaker. Your behavior last night was disgraceful. A woman does not walk out on her husband in front of his family. With respect, Mama, Kemi replied, her voice ice-cold. Your son spat on me in front of those same children. That's the disgraceful behavior. Men have their ways. You should have stayed and apologized. Kemi ended the call and turned back to Emmanuel. I want a complete audit of all our joint assets. Everything. The house, the cars, the business accounts, even his precious membership at a Koi club. Emmanuel made notes in his leather portfolio. What about the construction company? You technically own 80%. A slow smile spread across Kemi's face. I want a board meeting scheduled for tomorrow. It's time for a change in management. Her assistant knocked and entered. Ma, there's a woman here to see you. She says it's urgent. Her name is Chioma Okonkwo. The name hit Kemi like a physical blow. Chioma was Tund's business partner in his new real estate venture, the one he'd been spending late nights planning for the past 6 months. Send her in. Chioma entered nervously, her designer handbag clutched tightly in her hands. She was beautiful in the way Lagos socialites perfected, flawless makeup, expensive weave, designer clothes that cost more than most people's monthly salary. Mrs. Adebayo, I need to tell you something, Chioma began, her voice shaking. Kemi gestured to a chair, her business instincts already telling her this conversation would change everything. Your husband and I, we've been. Chioma couldn't finish the sentence. Having an affair, Kemi completed calmly.
For how long?
8 months. But Mrs. Adebayo, that's not why I'm here. Chioma's eyes filled with tears. He's been stealing money from your joint accounts. Large amounts. He thinks you don't know about the business finances, but I've seen the transfers. Emmanuel leaned forward. What kind of amounts? Over 2 million naira in the past month alone. He's been telling people that you're just a housewife, that he's the sole owner of everything. He's even been promising investors that he can deliver projects with money he doesn't actually have. The betrayal cut deeper than Kemi had imagined possible. Not only was Tund cheating, but he was also committing fraud using her money and her company's reputation. Why are you telling me this?
Kemi asked.
Chioma wiped her eyes. Because last night, when we were together, he laughed about how he'd put you in your place in front of his family. He said he was going to divorce you and take everything, leave you with nothing. She paused, looking directly at Kemi. That's when I realized what kind of man I'd gotten involved with. Kemi's hands clenched into fists. Tund hadn't just humiliated her publicly, he'd been planning her complete destruction while celebrating with his mistress. "There's more," Chioma whispered. "He's been recording conversations with you, trying to build a case that you're an unfit mother. He plans to take the children too." The room fell silent except for the distant sound of Lagos traffic below. Emmanuel closed his notebook with a sharp snap. "Kemi, this changes everything. We're not just dealing with domestic betrayal anymore. This is financial fraud, and if he's planning to manipulate custody proceedings." Kemi stood up, her decision crystallizing like ice in her veins. "Schedule that board meeting for this afternoon instead of tomorrow."
And Emmanuel?
"Prepare papers for a complete forensic audit of every account Tund has ever touched." As Chioma left, looking both relieved and terrified, Kemi stared out at the city that had made her fortune. Tund thought he was dealing with a helpless housewife. He was about to discover he'd declared war on one of Lagos's most powerful businesswomen. Her phone buzzed with another message from him. "Stop being dramatic and bring my children home. This tantrum ends now." Kemi smiled grimly as she typed her response. "See you at the board meeting." What happens when Kemi finally reveals her true power? The stakes just got higher, and Tund has no idea what's coming. Hit that subscribe button to see how this revenge unfolds. The Adebayo Construction Company boardroom had never seen tension like this. Kemi walked in wearing a navy blue power suit that commanded respect, her heels clicking authoritatively against the polished floor. Tund was already seated at the head of the table, surrounded by his 3 business partners, all men who dismissed her as Tund's pretty wife for years. "What is this about?" Tund demanded as Kemi took the seat directly across from him. "I don't have time for your childish games, Kemi." Emmanuel entered behind her, followed by 2 other lawyers and an accountant carrying thick folders of documents. The men around the table shifted uncomfortably, sensing something had changed. "Gentlemen," Kemi began, her voice steady and professional, "let me introduce myself properly. I'm Kemi Adebayo, CEO and majority shareholder of Emerald Holdings, which owns 80% of this company." The room erupted. Tund jumped to his feet, his face flushed with anger and confusion. "What are you talking about? I own this company. I built it from nothing." Emmanuel slid documents across the table to each man present. "These are the incorporation papers, the investment agreements, and the shareholding certificates. Mrs. Adebayo has been the majority owner and primary financier of Adebayo Construction for 3 years." Tund's business partner, Emeka, flipped through the papers with growing alarm. "Tund, is this true? You told us you had private investors, not that your wife owned the company." "She's lying," Tund shouted, but his voice cracked with uncertainty. "Those documents are fake. I have bank statements showing every transfer," the accountant announced calmly. "Every salary payment, every project funding, every equipment purchase has come through Emerald Holdings. Mr. Adebayo has been operating as CEO of a company he doesn't actually own." The infidelity in marriage was about to become the least of Tund's problems. His entire identity as a successful businessman was crumbling in real time.
"How?"
Tund whispered, sinking back into his chair. "How is this possible? Did you ever read the documents you signed when you needed funding?" Kemi asked coldly. "Or did you just assume your little wife wouldn't understand the legal language?" She turned to address the other men in the room. "Gentlemen, I'm calling for an immediate vote of no confidence in the current CEO. I'm also announcing a complete financial audit of all company transactions over the past 8 months." Emeka and the other partners exchanged worried glances. They'd been complicit in Tund's lavish spending, taking bonuses and perks they now realized might have been unauthorized. "Mrs. Adebayo," Emeka began carefully, "if what you're saying is true, then we need to discuss the future of our partnerships." "Your partnerships are with this company, not with Tund personally," Kemi clarified. "However, I've discovered evidence of significant financial irregularities that may affect all of your positions." Tund's phone started ringing. It was Chioma. He declined the call, but it rang again immediately. "Answer it," Kemi commanded. "Put it on speaker." "I'm not taking orders from You're taking orders from the majority shareholder of the company that employs you, Emmanuel interrupted. Answer the phone, Mr. Adebayo. With trembling hands, Tund accepted the call and activated the speaker. Tund. Chioma's panicked voice filled the room. The police are at my office. They're asking about money transfers, about our real estate deal. What did you do? The room went silent. Every man stared at Tund as the implications became clear. I don't know what you're talking about, Tund stammered, looking around the table at the accusing faces. Don't lie to me, Chioma shouted through the phone. They have bank records showing over 2 million naira transferred to our joint account. They're calling it fraud. Kemi leaned back in her chair, watching as her husband's world imploded. The domestic betrayal had led her to investigate deeper, and what she'd found was financial crime on a massive scale. Chioma, she said clearly into the phone. This is Kemi Adebayo. I suggest you cooperate fully with the police investigation. The line went dead. Tund stared at his wife with dawning horror. You called the police? You're having me investigated? I'm protecting my company and my children's inheritance from a man who's been stealing from his own family, Kemi replied. A man who celebrated publicly humiliating his wife while planning to rob her blind. Emmanuel placed another set of documents on the table. These are divorce papers, along with a restraining order. Mr. Adebayo, you're no longer welcome at the family home, and your access to company funds has been frozen pending the investigation. You can't do this, Tund roared. I'm your husband. I'm the father of your children. You lost the right to claim those titles when you spat on me in front of our babies, Kemi said, rising from her chair. When you planned to steal their future to fund your affair. She gathered her papers and headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and Tund? That hotel project you're so proud of? The one you've been bragging about to everyone? I'm shutting it down. Effective immediately. As she walked out, leaving Tund surrounded by his panicked business partners, Kemi felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Power. Real, undeniable power over her own destiny. But outside in the hallway, her phone buzzed with a message that made her blood run cold. You think you've won? I'll make sure you never see your children again. T. The revenge story was far from over. In fact, it was about to get much more dangerous. What would you do if your spouse threatened to take your children? Comment your thoughts on this betrayal, and don't forget to share this with someone who loves dramatic comebacks. Like and subscribe for more shocking twists. Kemi's hands shook as she read Tund's threatening message outside the boardroom. The co-parenting conflict she'd feared was becoming reality, and she knew from experience that desperate men could be dangerous men. Her phone rang immediately. It was her children's school. Mrs. Adebayo, there's been a situation, the headmistress said carefully. Mr. Adebayo arrived an hour ago demanding to pick up Zara and Kofi. When we explained that you hadn't authorized it, he became very agitated. He's claiming parental rights. Fear shot through Kemi's chest. Where are my children now? Safe in my office. But Mrs. Adebayo, he's causing quite a scene in the parking lot. He's telling other parents that you've stolen his company and turned his children against him. The emotional manipulation was escalating beyond the business realm now. Tund was trying to paint himself as the victim, using their children as pawns in his desperate attempt to regain control. I'm on my way, Kemi said, already heading for the elevator. Don't let him near my children. The drive to the school through Lagos traffic felt endless. Emmanuel called twice with updates from the police investigation. Apparently, Chioma had provided evidence of multiple fraudulent transactions. But all Kemi could think about was getting to Zara and Kofi before Tund's desperation turned violent. At the school, she found chaos. Tund's car was parked blocking the main entrance, and she could see him through the glass doors arguing with a security guard. Other parents were gathering at a safe distance, their phones out, recording the domestic betrayal playing out in their children's school. Kemi parked and walked calmly through the crowd, her head high despite the whispers and pointing fingers. There she is. Tund spotted her and rushed over, his eyes wild with rage and panic. Tell them, Kemi. Tell them I have the right to see my children. You have the right to supervise visitation once the restraining order is modified, Kemi replied quietly, aware that dozens of people were watching. You don't have the right to terrorize their school. Terrorize. Tund laughed bitterly. You're the one who destroyed our family. You're the one who's been lying about everything. Mrs. Adesanya, another parent from Zara's class, approached cautiously. Kemi, is everything all right? Do you need us to call anyone? Before Kemi could answer, Tund turned on Mrs. Adesanya with fury. Don't act concerned. You people love this, don't you? Watching a man lose everything because his wife thinks she's smarter than him. The crowd stepped back, phones still recording every word of his outburst. Tund, you're embarrassing yourself, Kemi said firmly. Our children are watching from that window. Is this really how you want them to remember their father? Tund followed her gaze and saw Zara and Kofi's faces pressed against the headmistress's office window, both children crying as they watched their father's public meltdown. For a moment, his expression softened, and Kemi saw a glimpse of the man she'd once loved. But it lasted only seconds before the rage returned. This is your fault, he hissed. You've turned them against me. I've done nothing but protect them from a man who put his affair and his greed above his family, Kemi replied. That's when Tund made his biggest mistake. In front of all the recording phones, all the witnesses, he grabbed Kemi's arm roughly and pulled her closer. You listen to me, he growled. I don't care what papers you have. I don't care what lawyers you hire. Those are my children, and I will get them back. I will get everything back. Let go of my arm, Tund. You've humiliated me for the last time. First at dinner, now at my own company. Mr. Adebayo. The voice was calm but commanding. Everyone turned to see Inspector Adebola of the Lagos State Police approaching with 2 officers. We've been looking for you. Tund released Kemi's arm immediately, his face going pale. There's been a formal complaint filed regarding financial irregularities at your company, Inspector Adebola continued. We need you to come with us for questioning. The crowd of parents watched in stunned silence as handcuffs appeared. Tund looked around desperately, as if searching for an escape route. This is a setup, he shouted. She's paying them. She's paying everyone. Sir, please don't make this more difficult than it needs to be, the inspector said patiently. As they led Tund away, he called out to Kemi one last time. You think you've won? I still have friends, Kemi. Powerful friends. This isn't over. The schoolyard erupted in whispers as Tund was placed in the back of the police car. Kemi stood frozen, watching her children's father being arrested in front of their school community. Mrs. Adesanya touched her shoulder gently. Kemi, what can we do to help? Before she could answer, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Saw the video online. You have bigger problems than you know. Meet me at Federal Palace Hotel Bar, 6 p.m.
Come alone.
A friend. As Kemi walked into the school to collect her traumatized children, she realized Tund's threat about having powerful friends might not have been an empty boast. The infidelity in marriage had led to fraud charges, but now something larger and more dangerous was stirring in the shadows. Someone else was involved in this game, and they wanted to meet. The public disgrace at the school was just recorded by dozens of phones, and by evening, the videos would be all over Lagos social media. But Kemi had a feeling that the mysterious message waiting for her represented a threat much bigger than viral videos. Who were Tund's powerful friends, and what did they want with her? Don't miss what happens next. This story is getting more intense by the minute. Hit like if you're as shocked as we are, and subscribe to see how deep this conspiracy goes. The Federal Palace Hotel Bar was dimly lit, filled with Lagos's elite conducting quiet business over expensive whiskey. Kemi arrived exactly at 6 p.m., her designer handbag clutched tightly as she scanned the room for whoever had sent the cryptic message. A woman approached from a corner booth, elegant, around 50, with the kind of confident bearing that spoke of serious money and connections. She wore traditional Yoruba jewelry mixed with a modern business suit, her gray-streaked hair styled perfectly. Mrs. Adebayo, I'm Senator Obayomi Nwosu, the woman said, extending her hand. Thank you for coming. Kemi's blood chilled. Senator Nwosu was one of Nigeria's most powerful politicians, known for her vast business networks and rumored connections to questionable deals across West Africa. What does a senator want with me? Kemi asked, sliding into the booth carefully. Senator Nwosu smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Your husband owes me money, Mrs. Adebayo. A substantial amount. His arrest this afternoon has created some complications for my business interests. I don't understand. What business did Tund have with you? He didn't tell you about the Port Harcourt project? The senator's eyebrows raised in mock surprise. The luxury resort development we've been financing together? Of course. He used your company's credit and reputation as collateral. Kemi felt the room spinning slightly. That's impossible. I would have known about any major project financing. Senator Nwosu placed a manila folder on the table between them. Inside were contracts, bank statements, and photographs of Tund shaking hands with various men in expensive suits. Your husband has been quite busy, Mrs. Adebayo. He approached me 6 months ago with a proposal for a massive resort development. He claimed to have backing from Emerald Holdings and personally guaranteed the initial investment of 50 million naira. The numbers made Kemi dizzy. 50 million naira was more than her company's liquid assets. He forged my signature, Kemi whispered, recognizing the documents, but knowing she'd never seen them before. Perhaps. But from my perspective, Mrs. Adebayo, your company accepted the money and began the project. Now, with your husband in police custody and the project stalled, I'm facing significant losses. The emotional manipulation was shifting to a whole new level. This wasn't just about domestic betrayal anymore. This was about criminal conspiracy involving one of Nigeria's most connected politicians. What exactly are you saying, Senator? I'm saying that regardless of what your husband did or didn't tell you, your company owes me 50 million naira plus interest. The contract is ironclad, even if you claim ignorance of its existence. Kemi's phone buzzed with messages from Emmanuel, but she ignored them, focused entirely on the dangerous woman across from her. And if I refuse to honor a contract I never signed for a project I never approved? Senator Nwosu leaned back, her smile becoming predatory. Then you'll discover that business disputes in Nigeria can become very complicated very quickly. Regulatory investigations, tax audits, license revocations, these things happen when powerful people feel they've been cheated. The threat was clear. This wasn't just about money. It was about Senator Nwosu's reputation and political connections. In Nigeria's complex business environment, crossing someone like her could destroy Kemi's company overnight. However, the senator continued, I'm a reasonable woman. I understand you're dealing with a cheating spouse and family drama. I'm willing to modify our arrangement. What kind of modification? 60% of your company's shares transferred to my holding company, plus management rights over all major projects. You keep 40% and nominal CEO title, but all decisions go through my people. Kemi stared at the woman in disbelief. You want me to give up control of the company I built to pay for my husband's fraud? I want you to honor your company's legal obligations and avoid the unpleasantness that comes with defaulting on agreements with people like me. The infidelity in marriage had led to this, a powerful politician demanding control of everything Kemi had worked for, using Tund's betrayal as leverage. I need time to think, Kemi said, starting to stand. Of course. Senator Nwosu handed her a business card. But Mrs. Adebayo, don't take too long. I have other investors who are getting impatient, and some of them are less diplomatic than I am. As Kemi walked through the hotel lobby, her phone rang with a call from an unknown number. Mrs. Adebayo? The voice was nervous, frightened. This is Chioma. I need to see you immediately. There's something about Tund and Senator Nwosu that you need to know. Something that could get us both killed. The line went dead. Kemi stood in the middle of the busy hotel lobby, surrounded by the sounds of Lagos's wealthy elite, and realized that her husband's betrayal had entangled her in something much darker than infidelity and fraud. Senator Nwosu's other investors and Chioma's fear suggested a web of corruption that could destroy her family entirely. Outside, a black SUV with tinted windows was parked near her car, its engine running. The revenge story was becoming a survival story, and Kemi was no longer sure who she could trust. As she walked toward her car, trying to appear calm, her phone buzzed with one final message. Leave Lagos tonight. Take the children. Trust no one. See. What dangerous secret is Chioma hiding? And who else is involved in this conspiracy? The stakes just got deadly serious. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. This story is about to take a shocking turn. Kemi's hands trembled as she drove through Lagos traffic, constantly checking her rearview mirror for the black SUV that had followed her from the hotel. The city lights blurred past as she tried to process everything: Tun's arrest, Senator Nwosu's threats, and now Chioma's terrified warning. She pulled into the parking lot of a busy ShopRite mall in Victoria Island, hoping the crowds would provide safety. Her phone had been buzzing with missed calls from Emmanuel, her mother, and numbers she didn't recognize. Inside the mall, she spotted Chioma huddled in a corner of the food court, wearing dark sunglasses and a headscarf despite being indoors. The beautiful, confident woman who'd visited her office yesterday looked broken, afraid. "Chioma, what's happening?" Kemi whispered, sliding into the seat across from her. "They killed him," Chioma said, her voice barely audible. Dr. Emeka Okafor, the accountant who was helping audit Tun's transactions. "They found his body this morning." Kemi's blood froze. Dr. Okafor was Emmanuel's business partner, the man who'd discovered the extent of Tun's financial crimes. Everyone knows he's connected to oil theft and pipeline sabotage. Kemi realized she was dealing with more than political corruption. This was organized crime at the highest levels of Nigerian society. "The resort project was fake," Chioma continued. "It was a way to launder drug money from their operations across West Africa. Tun's company was supposed to create false contracts, inflate construction costs, and provide clean investment records. But Tun didn't know this? Not at first. He thought he was just overcharging rich politicians for construction work. But when he started asking questions about some of the payments, they threatened him. That's when he began stealing from your accounts. He was trying to repay them and get out. The co-parenting conflict, the infidelity in marriage, the public disgrace, all of it had been Tun's desperate attempt to escape a criminal conspiracy he'd stumbled into. He thought if he could just pay them back quietly, he could protect you." Kemi's phone rang. It was Senator Nwosu. "Mrs. Adebayo, I hope you had time to consider my offer. I'm afraid circumstances have made our timeline more urgent." "What circumstances?" Kemi asked, though she suspected she already knew. "Dr. Okafor's unfortunate accident this morning. It seems someone doesn't want certain business arrangements to become public knowledge. I'd hate for similar accidents to befall other people who might be uncooperative." The threat was crystal clear. Sign over control of her company, or join Dr. Okafor in the morgue. "I need until tomorrow morning to arrange the paperwork," Kemi said carefully. "Mrs. Adebayo, I hope you understand that some information is better left private. For everyone's safety." After she hung up, Chioma grabbed her hand desperately. "Kemi, you can't give them your company. Once they have legitimate business cover, they'll expand their operations. More money laundering, more violence. Then what do you suggest? Run away and let them kill my husband and threaten my children forever? We need evidence. Real evidence that we can take to the federal authorities, people outside their influence network." Chioma reached into her purse and pulled out a USB drive. "I copied everything before they started destroying files. Bank records, encrypted communications, photos of meetings. Everything." For the first time since this nightmare began, Kemi felt a spark of hope. But before she could respond, Chioma's eyes widened with terror, looking over Kemi's shoulder. "They found us," she whispered. Kemi turned to see two men in dark suits walking purposefully through the food court, their eyes scanning the crowd. One of them spoke into a phone while the other moved toward the exit, cutting off their escape route. "The bathroom," Chioma whispered urgently. "There's a service exit." They stood casually and walked toward the restroom, trying not to draw attention. Behind them, Kemi could hear one of the men speaking loudly into his phone. "Yes, sir. We have visual confirmation. Both targets are here." In the bathroom, Chioma led her through a maintenance door that opened into a service corridor. They hurried past confused janitors and storage rooms until they reached an emergency exit that led to the back parking area. "My car is around front," Kemi said, breathing hard. "They'll be watching it. We need to call someone we trust." Kemi's phone buzzed with a message from Emmanuel. Kemi, where are you? There are men at your office asking questions. Don't come here. The net was closing around them fast. These people had resources, connections, and no hesitation about using violence to protect their interests. There's a taxi rank 2 blocks away, Chioma said. If we can get there. They started running through the back alleys behind the mall, their heels clicking against wet pavement. Behind them, they could hear car doors slamming and voices shouting instructions. As they reached the main road, Kemi grabbed Chioma's arm. Give me the USB drive.
What?
If something happens to both of us, this evidence dies with us. I'm sending it to someone who can use it. Chioma handed over the drive, and Kemi quickly used her phone to upload the files to a secure cloud storage account she shared with her sister in London. There, she said as they flagged down a taxi. Insurance policy. As their taxi pulled into traffic, Kemi saw the black SUV from earlier emerging from the mall parking lot, followed by 2 more identical vehicles. The driver, an elderly Yoruba man, noticed their distress. Sister, you need police? No police, Chioma said quickly.
Just drive.
Please. As they wove through Lagos traffic, Kemi realized that tomorrow's 9 a.m. meeting with Senator Nwosu wasn't just about signing over her company. It was probably meant to be her death sentence. Once she transferred the assets, she and Chioma would become loose ends in a criminal conspiracy worth hundreds of millions. Her phone buzzed with a message that made her heart stop. Mummy, where are you? Some men came to school asking about you and Daddy. The teachers won't let us leave. Zara. The criminals had moved beyond threatening her business. They were now targeting her children. But as the taxi carried them through the chaotic streets of Lagos, Kemi felt something unexpected. Not just fear, but rage. These people had used her husband's desperation to drag her family into their criminal world. They'd threatened her children to protect their money laundering operation. Driver, she said firmly, take us to the National Intelligence Agency office in Ikoyi. Kemi, no. Chioma grabbed her arm. They have people everywhere. We can't trust anyone in government. Then we don't trust government, Kemi replied, her business instincts kicking in. We trust media. She scrolled through her contacts and found the number she was looking for, Ngozi Okafor, investigative journalist for Channels Television and one of Nigeria's most feared corruption hunters. The call connected immediately. Ngozi? This is Kemi Adebayo. I have a story for you that's going to bring down some very powerful people. But I need protection for my children first. As the taxi carried them toward an uncertain future, Kemi realized that the only way to win this deadly game was to change the rules entirely. The revenge story was becoming a war for survival, and she was about to take the fight public in a way that would shock all of Nigeria. The channel's television studio was buzzing with controlled chaos at 11 p.m. as Ngozi Okafor prepared for the most explosive investigative report of her career. Kemi sat in the green room, watching through monitors as Nigeria's most trusted journalist reviewed the evidence that would destroy Senator Nwosu's criminal network. Kemi, are you absolutely certain about this? Ngozi asked, entering the room with a cup of coffee. Once we broadcast this, there's no going back. These people will stop at nothing to silence you. They're already trying to kill me, Kemi replied, adjusting the modest headscarf she'd chosen to wear on camera. At least this way, the whole country will know why. Her children were safe. Ngozi had arranged for them to be moved to a secure location with Kemi's sister, guarded by journalists from 3 different media houses. The story was too big now for anyone to suppress quietly. Emmanuel had arrived an hour earlier with additional documentation he'd rescued from his office before Senator Nwosu's people could destroy it. The evidence was overwhelming: falsified contracts, money laundering through construction projects, connections to drug trafficking operations across West Africa. The most damaging evidence is the audio recordings, Ngozi explained, reviewing her notes. Chioma's phone captured conversations between Tund and Chief Okafor discussing specific drug shipments and payment schedules. Through the studio window, they could see news vans from competing stations arriving. Word was spreading through Lagos's media community that something massive was about to break. Kemi's phone had been buzzing with calls from unknown numbers for the past hour. Senator Nwosu was clearly desperate to reach her before the broadcast. Finally, she answered one of the calls. "Mrs. Adebayo, I think you're making a terrible mistake." Senator Nwosu's voice was cold, controlled. "Think about your children. Think about their future." "I am thinking about their future," Kemi replied. "I'm thinking about the country I want them to inherit." "You have no idea who you're dealing with. This goes far beyond Nigeria. There are international interests at stake here." "Then maybe it's time the international community knew what kind of people they're dealing with." The line went silent for a moment. When Senator Nwosu spoke again, her voice carried a chilling finality. "You've just signed your family's death warrant, Mrs. Adebayo. I hope your moment of righteousness was worth it." The call ended, and immediately Kemi's phone rang again. This time it was her security detail. "Ma, we've got movement around the studio. Multiple vehicles, some with government plates. They're not trying to hide." Ngozi heard the conversation and made a quick decision. "We're going live now." Not waiting for the scheduled broadcast. Within minutes, breaking news alerts were flashing across Nigerian television screens. Ngozi appeared on camera with the gravity of someone about to change the country's political landscape. "Good evening, Nigeria. What you're about to hear represents one of the largest corruption and money laundering operations in our nation's recent history, involving sitting politicians, international drug cartels, and the systematic abuse of our financial institutions." Kemi watched from the control room as Ngozi began laying out the evidence methodically. Bank records appeared on screen. Audio recordings played of Chief Okafor discussing drug shipment schedules. Photos showed Senator Nwosu meeting with known international criminals. But the most devastating moment came when Ngozi played the recording of Tun's conversation with Senator Nwosu from 2 weeks ago. "Senator, I can't keep falsifying these construction reports. People are getting suspicious. Mr. Adebayo, you took our money. You used your wife's company as collateral. You don't get to develop a conscience now. What if I just return the money? All of it? The only way out of this business is in a coffin." Asked Dr. Okafor. "Oh wait, you can't." The recording sent shockwaves through the studio. Even the hardened journalists looked stunned at the casual admission of murder. Kemi's phone exploded with notifications. Social media was erupting across Nigeria and beyond. Hashtag Senator Nwosu Exposed was trending globally within minutes. But then the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in, keeping the cameras rolling, but armed men were suddenly visible through the studio windows. The building was being surrounded. "Keep broadcasting," Ngozi commanded her crew. "Whatever happens, keep those cameras rolling." Kemi could hear shouting in the hallways, security guards trying to deny entry to people who clearly had no intention of being denied. That's when Chioma burst into the control room, her face pale with terror. "They have Tund," she gasped. "They broke him out of police custody 20 minutes ago. They're bringing him here." Through the studio's front windows, they could see a convoy of black SUVs pulling up. Men in dark suits were getting out, surrounding the building with military precision. "Why would they bring Tund here?" Emmanuel asked. Chioma's answer made everyone in the room go cold. "Because they want to make him kill you on live television. They want Nigeria to watch a domestic dispute turn deadly, discrediting everything we've revealed." Kemi stared at the monitors showing her husband being dragged from a vehicle, his face battered, his eyes wild with fear or drugs. She couldn't tell which. The domestic betrayal was about to become a public execution, and the whole country would be watching. "Get me on camera," Kemi said suddenly. "Kemi, no. Get me on camera right now." As armed men began breaking down the studio's front doors, Kemi walked onto the live set, facing the cameras that were broadcasting to millions of Nigerians. "My name is Kemi Adebayo," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting around her. "In the next few minutes, you may see terrible things happen to me and my family. But I want Nigeria to know we died fighting for the truth." Through the studio windows, she could see Tund being pushed toward the entrance, a gun pressed to his back. The most shocking confrontation of her life was about to unfold on live television, and she had no idea if either of them would survive it. The studio doors exploded open as Tund stumbled inside, pushed by 2 armed men. His face was swollen from beatings, his expensive suit torn and bloody. When he saw Kemi standing calmly in front of the live cameras, his expression crumbled into desperate anguish. "Kemi, I'm sorry," he sobbed, falling to his knees. "I'm so sorry for everything." Senator Nwosu entered behind him, flanked by Chief Okafor and 4 armed guards. Her political composure was gone, replaced by the cold fury of a cornered predator. "Turn off those cameras," she commanded. "This is live television, Senator." Ngozi replied from her anchor desk, somehow managing to maintain her professional demeanor despite the guns pointed at her crew. 12 million Nigerians are watching right now. Then they're about to witness what happens to people who betray their business partners, Senator Nwosu said, pulling out a pistol and placing it in Tun's shaking hands. The studio fell silent except for the quiet hum of cameras still broadcasting across Nigeria and streaming online worldwide. "You see, Nigeria," Senator Nwosu addressed the cameras directly, "this is what happens when wives don't respect their husbands. When they steal companies. When they try to destroy families." The emotional manipulation was stunning. Even in this moment, she was trying to reframe Tun's criminal involvement and her own corruption as a domestic dispute. "Kill your wife, Mr. Adebayo," she ordered. "End this nonsense," she started, "and your children live. Refuse, and I'll make sure they join you in the morgue." Tun raised the gun toward Kemi with trembling hands. "I never meant for it to go this far," he whispered. "They said it was just construction work. Easy money." "I know," Kemi said softly, her eyes locked on his. "I know you were trying to protect us." "Mrs. Adebayo is quite understanding," Senator Nwosu said mockingly. "But understanding doesn't pay back 50 million naira or silence inconvenient witnesses." That's when Kemi made her move. "You're right, Senator. It doesn't." She pulled out her phone, holding it up for the cameras to see. "But neither does killing us on live television while half of Africa is watching." "What are you doing?" "Showing Nigeria exactly who you are." Kemi's thumb hovered over her phone screen. "This phone is connected to every major news outlet in West Africa, the BBC, CNN International, and Al Jazeera. One touch, and every detail of your operation, including bank account numbers in Switzerland and the Cayman Islands, goes public worldwide." Senator Nwosu's confidence wavered slightly. "You're bluffing." "Chief Okafor, your real name is actually Marcus Silva, and you've been wanted by Interpol for drug trafficking since 2018. You've been using forged Nigerian identity documents." Chief Okafor's face went white. That information hadn't been in any of the documents they'd seen. "Your operation isn't just money laundering, is it?" Kemi continued, still holding her phone ready. "You're also trafficking women and children through those construction sites." The resort in Port Harcourt was going to be a cover for a human trafficking hub. The studio fell completely silent. Even Senator Nwosu looked shocked at how much Kemi knew.
How?
Senator Nwosu whispered. "Because while you were threatening my family, I was talking to your victims." Kemi's voice grew stronger. 15 women and children rescued from your operation 2 hours ago are now in protective custody with the International Criminal Court. They've identified you both from photographs. It was a bluff, but a convincing one. The uncertainty in their captors' eyes told her it was working. "The ICC has been investigating this network for 8 months. Kemi lied smoothly. "They've been waiting for someone with inside access to provide confirmation. Congratulations. You just provided it on live television." Tun slowly lowered the gun, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Kemi, what are you saying?" "I'm saying that for the past 6 months, while you thought you were protecting our family by working with these people, I've been working with international law enforcement to bring them down." It wasn't entirely true, but it didn't need to be. The seed of doubt was planted. Senator Nwosu's phone began ringing incessantly. Text messages were flooding in. Through the studio windows, they could see police vehicles and military trucks surrounding the building. "That's impossible," she stammered. "We have people in every level of government." "You have people in Nigerian government," Kemi corrected. "But this operation crossed international borders. Child trafficking is a crime that gets attention from organizations you can't bribe or threaten. The co-parenting conflict, the infidelity in marriage, the domestic betrayal. All of it had been cover for Kemi's real investigation into the criminal network that had ensnared her family. The USB drive Chioma gave me? Kemi smiled grimly. It was already encrypted and transmitted to Interpol before we even met at the mall. Everything that's happened tonight has been to get you to incriminate yourselves on camera while international law enforcement moved into position. Senator Nwosu raised her gun toward Kemi, her face twisted with rage. You think you're so clever. The shot rang out, echoing through the studio. But it wasn't Senator Nwosu who fired. Chief Okafor had shot her in the back, his face grim with resignation. Sorry, Senator, but I'm not going down for human trafficking charges. That's life in prison, not the comfortable exile we planned. As Senator Nwosu collapsed, bleeding on the studio floor, Chief Okafor turned the gun on himself. This is Marcus Silva, also known as Chief Emeka Okafor, he said to the cameras. Everything Mrs. Adebayo said is true. The evidence is in my phone, in my laptop, in my house. I'm sorry for what we did to those children. The second shot ended his confession permanently. Tun dropped the gun he'd been holding and crawled toward Kemi, sobbing uncontrollably. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I thought I was protecting you. I thought if I just paid them back. Kemi knelt beside her husband as sirens wailed outside and armed police stormed into the studio. The cameras kept rolling, broadcasting their reunion to a nation that had watched their marriage nearly die on live television. I know, she whispered, holding him as he cried. I know you were trying to be a good father. But next time we face something like this, we face it together. As paramedics treated Senator Nwosu and police secured the scene, Ngozi wrapped up what would become the most-watched news broadcast in Nigerian history. Whose courage brought this network to justice will be reunited with her children shortly. But even as the immediate danger passed, Kemi knew their story wasn't over. The network was larger than just these three people, and powerful enemies would be looking for revenge. The infidelity in marriage had been resolved, but the battle for their family's future was just beginning. As they left the studio under heavy police protection, Kemi's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown international number. The network remembers. We'll be in touch. Friends of the Senator. The revenge story had become a survival story, and now it was about to become something even more dangerous, a war against an international criminal organization that had just lost millions of dollars and several key operatives. But for the first time in months, Kemi and Tund were facing it together. 3 weeks after the explosive television broadcast, Kemi sat in the secure conference room of the Murtala Muhammad International Airport, watching her children play with tablets while international security agents discussed their family's future. Agent Sarah Mitchell from Interpol spread photographs across the table, surveillance images of men in various African cities, all connected to the criminal network they'd exposed. Mrs. Adebayo, we've identified cells operating in Ghana, Senegal, and Ivory Coast, Agent Mitchell explained. The broadcast disrupted their operations across West Africa, but it also made your family a target for retaliation. Tund sat beside Kemi, his arm in a sling from injuries sustained during his captivity. The past 3 weeks had been a journey of rebuilding trust and healing from the domestic betrayal that had nearly destroyed their marriage. What are our options? Kemi asked, though she suspected she already knew. Witness protection. New identities. Relocation to a country where these networks have limited reach. For how long? Agent Mitchell exchanged glances with her Nigerian counterpart, Detective Inspector Adebola. Potentially permanent, Mrs. Adebayo. This network had operations in 15 countries and assets worth over $2 billion. You've cost them everything. 8-year-old Zara looked up from her tablet. Mummy, are we going on a long trip? Before Kemi could answer, Detective Inspector Adebola's phone rang urgently. He stepped away to take the call, returning with a grim expression. There's been a development. We've intercepted communications suggesting an immediate threat to your family. We need to move now. The co-parenting conflict they'd once worried about seemed trivial compared to protecting their children from international criminals seeking revenge. Where would we go? Tund asked quietly. Canada has agreed to accept you under their witness protection program. You'd have new identities, financial support while you rebuild your lives, and security monitoring. Kemi thought about the business empire she'd built, the Emerald Holdings company that had been her life's work. What happens to everything we've worked for? Your assets in Nigeria are frozen pending the investigation, but Agent Mitchell has good news about that, Inspector Adebola said. Agent Mitchell smiled, the first positive expression they'd seen from her. The Swiss accounts we recovered contain $47 million that we can directly trace to your construction company. As victims of fraud, you're entitled to full restitution. $47 million, Tund repeated in disbelief. Plus, several governments are offering substantial rewards for information that led to dismantling this trafficking network. Your testimony alone is worth another $10 million in combined rewards. For the first time since this nightmare began, Kemi felt something like hope. They could rebuild their lives, maybe even stronger than before. But that's when her phone buzzed with a message that made her blood freeze. Nice airport meeting. Wave goodbye to Zara for us. Network friends. They were being watched, even in this secure location. Agent Mitchell saw Kemi's expression and immediately activated her radio. This is Mitchell. We have a breach. Lockdown protocols now. Alarms began blaring throughout the airport. Security guards rushed past their conference room windows as the facility went into emergency mode. How did they know we're here? Tund demanded. Inspector Adebola was already checking his team for communication leaks when Agent Mitchell made a chilling discovery. Mrs. Adebayo, the message didn't come through normal cellular networks. It came through the airport's internal Wi-Fi system. The realization hit everyone simultaneously. Someone inside the airport security system was working for the network. We need to move now, Agent Mitchell commanded, grabbing her equipment. All of you, stay close. As they hurried through the airport corridors with their children, Kemi saw something that made her stop dead in her tracks. Emmanuel, her lawyer and trusted friend, was standing near the departure gate talking quietly into a phone. When he saw her looking, he quickly ended the call and walked toward them with a smile. Kemi, I heard about the protection arrangements. I wanted to say goodbye before you left, but Agent Mitchell was already drawing her weapon. How did you know which gate, Mr. Okafor? That information was classified. Emmanuel's friendly expression faltered. I have contacts in airport security. I just wanted to help. Emmanuel? Kemi whispered, the betrayal hitting her like a physical blow. You've been working with them? They approached me months ago, Kemi. They threatened my family. I didn't have a choice. The emotional manipulation extended even to the people she'd trusted most. Her lawyer, who'd helped her discover Tund's fraud, had been feeding information to the criminals all along. The audit records, the corporate documents. How much did you tell them? Agent Mitchell demanded, her gun trained on Emmanuel. Everything, he admitted, his composure completely cracking. They knew every move you made, because I reported directly to them. That explained how the network had stayed one step ahead, how they'd known to destroy evidence, how they'd anticipated Kemi's legal strategies. But they promised they'd leave your family alone once this was over, Emmanuel pleaded. I was trying to protect everyone by helping child traffickers? Tund's voice was filled with disgust. Through the airport windows, Kemi could see black SUVs racing across the tarmac toward their terminal. The network had found them, and they were running out of escape options. There, Agent Mitchell pointed to a service elevator. Emergency extraction point. As they ran toward the elevator, Emmanuel called out desperately. Kemi, you have to understand. They have my daughter. They'll kill her if I don't cooperate. The infidelity in marriage had been painful, but this betrayal by her closest professional ally felt even worse. Emmanuel had been like a brother to her, someone she'd trusted with her children's future. But as the elevator doors closed and they descended to the secure underground tunnels beneath the airport, Kemi realized something important. They were still alive, still together as a family, and still fighting. The revenge story had taught her that trust was precious, that love required courage, and that sometimes the people closest to you could be the most dangerous enemies. As they boarded an unmarked plane bound for Toronto, leaving behind everything they'd ever known, Kemi held her children close and looked at Tund. Whatever happens next, she said, we face it together. The domestic betrayal that started their journey was ending, but their new life as a family united against the world was just beginning. 2 years later, Kemi stood in the kitchen of their suburban Toronto home, watching through the window as Tund coached Kofi's soccer practice in their backyard. Zara sat at the dining table doing homework, occasionally asking for help with her Canadian history assignment. Their new names were Jennifer and Thomas Anderson, but in the privacy of their home, they remained the Adebayo family that had survived betrayal, criminal conspiracy, and international threats. Kemi's phone buzzed with a familiar notification, another deposit into their secure bank account. The rewards and restitution money had made them wealthier than they'd ever been in Lagos, but more importantly, it had given them the freedom to rebuild their lives on their own terms. "Mom, can you help me with this question about Canadian immigration?" Zara asked in the perfect Canadian accent she'd developed. "Of course, sweetheart." As they worked together on the homework, Kemi reflected on how much had changed. The co-parenting conflict that had once seemed so devastating now felt like a minor disagreement between people who loved each other. The infidelity in marriage had been forgiven and forgotten, replaced by a partnership stronger than anything they'd had before. Tund entered through the back door, grass stains on his jeans and a smile on his face, expressions of simple joy that had been missing during their final months in Lagos. "Kofi scored 3 goals today," he announced proudly. "I think we might have a future professional on our hands. Or a future doctor who happens to love soccer," Kemi corrected with a laugh. Their evening routine was peaceful: dinner together, homework supervision, bedtime stories. The domestic betrayal that had once torn their family apart had ultimately taught them to cherish these ordinary moments. But as they tucked the children into bed, Kemi's secure phone rang, the special device Agent Mitchell had given them for emergencies only. "Mrs. and Jennifer." Agent Mitchell's voice was cautious. "I have news. Good news and potentially concerning news." Tund joined Kemi in their bedroom as they put the call on speaker. "The good news is that we've dismantled the last known cell of the network. Arrests in Ghana, Ivory Coast, and Senegal over the past month have effectively ended their operations in West Africa." "And the concerning news?"
Kemi asked.
"Emmanuel Okafor has been found dead in his prison cell. Apparent suicide, but the timing is suspicious. He'd been cooperating with our investigation, providing information about other network associates we hadn't identified." The emotional manipulation had followed Emmanuel even into prison and ultimately cost him his life. "Are we still at risk?" Tund asked. "We don't believe so. With no operational capacity and most of their leadership dead or in prison, there's no organized threat remaining. However, we're recommending you remain in Canada under your current identities for at least another year." After the call ended, Kemi and Tund sat quietly in their bedroom, processing the news. "Do you miss it?" Tund asked eventually. "Lagos, the business, our old life?" Kemi considered the question carefully. "I miss the excitement of building something from nothing. But I don't miss the fear, the corruption, the constant worry about who we could trust." "I keep thinking about that dinner," Tund said quietly. "The night I spat on you in front of my family. If I could take back one moment in my life." "We can't change the past," Kemi interrupted gently. "But we can learn from it." She pulled out her laptop and showed him something she'd been working on secretly for months: business plans for a new company. "Anderson Consulting," she explained, "helping other immigrant families navigate the Canadian business environment. Legitimate this time, completely transparent, built on helping people instead of hiding from them." Tund smiled as he reviewed her detailed projections and market analysis. "You never stop building empires, do you? But this time, we build it together. Full partners, no secrets, no separate bank accounts or hidden ownership structures." "What about the Children's Education Fund?" Kemi showed him another spreadsheet. "Already established. Between the reward money and our investments, Zara and Kofi will be able to attend any university they choose, anywhere in the world." As they prepared for bed, both of them felt something they hadn't experienced in years: complete peace about their future. But just before turning off the lights, Kemi checked her personal email one last time. There was a message from an address she didn't recognize, sent only minutes earlier. Mrs. Adebayo, my name is Dr. Amina Yakubu. I'm an investigative journalist with the BBC. I've been following your story, and I believe there are other networks operating across Africa using similar methods. Would you be willing to share your experience to help expose them? Many families are suffering what yours survived.
A.
Kemi stared at the message for a long moment, then showed it to Tund. What do you think? She asked. I think, Tund said slowly, that some battles are worth fighting, even after you've already won. The revenge story that had begun with public humiliation at a family dinner had evolved into something larger, a mission to protect other families from the criminal networks that preyed on legitimate businesses and loving marriages. Kemi typed her response. Dr. Yakubu, I'd be honored to help. Let's discuss how we can make sure no other family goes through what we survived. As she sent the email, both she and Tund realized that their story wasn't ending. It was transforming into something that could protect others from domestic betrayal, financial fraud, and international criminal conspiracy. The Anderson family would continue building their peaceful Canadian life, but the Adebayo legacy would live on in the fight for justice across Africa. Outside their bedroom window, Toronto sparkled with lights from thousands of other immigrant families who had come to Canada seeking safety and opportunity. Tomorrow, Kemi would begin the process of helping other families find the same peace and security that she and Tund had finally achieved. The infidelity in marriage had been forgiven. The public disgrace had been overcome. The criminal threats had been defeated. What remained was love, partnership, and the determination to ensure that their suffering had meaning beyond their own survival. As they fell asleep in their safe Canadian home, with their children dreaming peacefully down the hall, Kemi and Tund knew they had truly won, not just the battle against their enemies, but the more important battle to rebuild their family stronger than it had ever been before.